So we did have a particular agenda here. So we were working with an online labor market. I will share the details. And we had this agenda to increase demand for workers with a criminal record. Currently in the US, about a third of workers who apply for these very low-wage jobs or short-term jobs are actually screened out automatically. So the motivation for this extends to more labor markets than the one we'll be studying. In general, firms are much less likely to hire workers that have a criminal record. Many platforms like Uber and Lyft will automatically screen out people who have a criminal record. On the slides, you can see I've shortened the phrase to WCs, and I actually might do that verbally too. So we care about it for a number of reasons, but we also think that there are probably externalities if WCs have a hard time reintegrating into the labor market. And what's less clear is why it is that firms are reliant on criminal screening processes to begin with. So the question of why, and then what tools they might have at their disposal to do things differently is going to be the aim of this paper. And the way we study this is through a discrete choice field experiment. It's on a large jobs platform. So the platform staffs, you can think of the big department stores like Nordstrom's, and they'll be hiring about 100 people all at once. And so we think of these jobs as policy relevant because essentially these could be very nice entry level jobs for workers, and they're also fairly low stakes. An employer is only hiring for, typically it says daily here on the slide, but actually the typical one is going to be at the weeks level, and about 50% of people get rehired. So there's actually a nice foot in the door opportunity for a lot of these jobs. And our setting, we're going to have employers making actual hiring decisions. And we're going to be essentially varying what their option set is and whether or not they can access a criminal screening process. So employers, we're essentially going to look at employers' choice to match with workers with a criminal background under randomized conditions. And then I just want to summarize the findings. It's a quick talk, but I still want to make sure that everybody walks away with the headlines here. So the first and very important point is that at baseline, so before we introduce any new policies in place, this is a marketplace like many others that automatically screens out. And we find that when given the option to hire workers with a criminal record, in fact, 39% of employers are interested. We'll see that there's lower demand for certain types of jobs. So jobs that are customer facing, jobs that have high value inventory affiliated with the tasks. And then we'll also see that wage subsidies, so offering to subsidize the wages of these workers, does increase demand, but actually it increases demand with a relatively low elasticity. So even at 100% subsidy, so when essentially the platform is fully paying for workers that have had a criminal record, we still see demand only rise to about 60%. Actually shy of 60%, and I'll show you the details. And then we are going to find that alternatives to the criminal background check, so replacing the criminal background screening check with particular types of insurance policies, performance screening, and objective productivity information. All these things are going to actually increase demand at a much lower cost and more effectively than just wage subsidies. All right, so let me get started. Oh, this is sort of just the exciting thing for us co-authors, because after this experiment, the platform actually went ahead and did change the design of their platform. So we're now looking at 12,000 new job slots available for workers with a criminal record. All right, so just to give you a framework here, the way we think about the choice of an employer, very simplified, is that they're going to be maximizing their expected profits, and it's going to be a function of how productive they expect the worker to be, less the wage that they have to pay. And then there's going to be an additional important term here, which is going to be the cost of a bad event happening on the job, and then the likelihood, so multiplied by the likelihood that it happens. And if we just have this very simple framework, we have predictions, which I'll show you pan out in the data. So the first is fairly intuitive. Wage subsidies are going to increase demand, as they would for any type of worker likely. We'll also see that crime and safety insurance are also effective at increasing demand, and especially for particular types of jobs where that term probability of a bad event is probably higher. So we'll be able to predict which types of jobs are responsive, where the employer's hiring needs are responsive to crime and safety insurance. And then the last fairly important policy here is going to be performance screening, because we find that employers' expectations of productivity are different by group level. So they're going to expect lower productivity of workers that have a past criminal history. They underestimate how productive they will be. And so performance screening also has a pretty big impact on the demand side. Okay, so these are the predictions. And now I'm just going to do three things. I'm going to show you the setting for the and explain the randomized controlled trial. And then I'm going to report results. First, the baseline demand results, and then the impact of interventions. All right, so the setting is a large US on-demand staffing agency. They serve about 10,000 large employers. These firms are large on average, so the average firm size is over 400 people. And but there's a wide coverage of industries. And the key to this experiment is that employers are posting the job and qualifications. So basically, they're submitting exactly what they want to hire to the platform. And then the platform at that point has the option to just assign whomever fits that criteria. And so what we're going to do is see if we can shift the types of qualifications employers are comfortable with. This is what it looks like when an employer goes ahead to post a job. They have to enter these details, including ability to lift 50 pounds, stand for 6 hours, the driver's license, etc. So this is the kind of submission, a very specific set of criteria. And then after they submit the criteria, the platform assigns the worker. Very, very few workers and firms will ever unmatch after that point. So about 1% don't actually end up doing the job. And then the way we went about doing the experiment is by messaging clients, so these 10,000 large employers, about 1,000 of whom participated, would receive messages from the platform. So basically the platform that they've outsourced their hiring to. And then on average, these managers are experienced. They have 7 years experience overall hiring. And 73% of them say they can personally affect the decision of who to hire. And the question that we sent was, we're considering expanding our pool of workers to include individuals that have a criminal record. If you indicate that you're interested in workers with a criminal record, then, and only then, your choice could affect whether those workers are able to accept the jobs you post. And this effectively means that if it's very clear to, I think, the clients in this context, and then the platform follows through, if they say yes, in fact, that's the equivalent of relaxing the criteria. So the platform can choose among workers with a criminal record when they choose the assignment for the job. And then, so, just a very simple question: would you permit workers with a criminal background to perform jobs you post? Yes, and only if it's hard to fill my jobs, or no, could be the reply of the employer. And those who select yes are granted, in this case, the platform then has legal permission to assign WCs. Okay, and then we randomize conditions in the context of this type of question. So some clients are going to see the question: if the platform gave you an X% discount for workers with a criminal record, would you permit such workers to perform the jobs you post? And then X is going to be a discount, which we randomize. And this is going to be how we see the responsiveness of employers to wage subsidies. So we're going to randomize that X from 5% of the wage to all the way up to 100% of the wage. And this is what the results look like. So you can see that on the X-axis here is the choice of wage that we get offered. So at 100% here, the effective wages that the employer is going to pay the full amount. And you can see under zero wage subsidy or 100% effective wage, 39% of employers say yes, they're willing to hire WCs. And then if you look at when we fully subsidize the wage, we push it up to about 54%. And here is the results for we're just taking the same responses, but splitting by types of jobs with a customer interaction or no customer interaction. So you can see those with no customer interaction are obviously expressing higher demand for this population. And you can see those with no high value inventory are also more responsive. So this sort of helps for the platform. The platform was trying to figure out whom to assign WCs at first, and so this was fairly informative. And then the next part of the set of results is going to be how we can introduce different policies other than a criminal screening background to balance firm demand for workers and who's screened out. So for example, when we offer crime and safety insurance, the question to the clients is if the platform can cover damages up to X, where we randomize the amount related to theft or safety incurred by workers with a criminal record, would you permit such workers to perform the jobs you post? And here you can see that under 0% wage subsidy, without the insurance, we had a demand of 39%. With the insurance, it jumps up to 51%. So it's already very close to 100% wage subsidy. And this is with the $5,000 cap, so a reasonably low insurance cap, suggesting that employers are responsive even when it comes to coverage for minor crimes and infractions. And this is when we raise the cap to 5 million. You can see there's a boost, but it's actually very modest. So it's likely indicative that employers are especially concerned with these relatively minor infractions. That's not true for all types of jobs. I'm showing this slide to let you know that on the right-hand side, when we strictly look at high-value inventory jobs, the high cap insurance actually increased demand by 20%, which is a very large. It's 20 percentage points. So it's a very large increase in demand that comes for these types of jobs when the insurance cap is high. And now I just want to show you one last intervention before wrapping up. So this is the performance history. So if the platform required workers with a criminal record to have satisfactorily completed 1, 5, or 25 jobs prior to us assigning the worker to you, would you permit such a worker to perform the job that you post? And here, again, you can see that one job, just one prior rating, is going to have a 12 percentage point boost on average in demand. And increasing it to 25 jobs is statistically the same as one job. So really having a little bit of evidence that this person has successfully worked in the same context is quite effective in our setting at increasing demand. And I'm going to skip down to this cost comparison just for the sake of understanding how the platform ultimately made their decisions. So here you can see that we can think about these policies from a cost benefit perspective. So the idea of subsidizing wages by 50% would get us a 10% boost in hiring of this population of WCs, and it would cost on average $60 per worker per day. But then we look at the insurance. So with the 5K insurance cap, depending on a range of how likely you think it is for employers to claim this insurance, it would cost between $5 and $50 a day, where $50 a day is if it happened one every 100 shifts. So it's already cost effective relative to the subsidy. And then having required one past job is actually free because, as I mentioned, 40% of the clients are willing to take on a worker without any condition. And this would be the pool of clients that would be providing the very first reviews for the pool of workers with a criminal record. And then they would have extended opportunities to the rest of the population. So this is on the agenda for the platform. And so
we have 1 minute left. Sorry to intervene.
No, that's helpful. Yeah. I'm right about the conclusion. So the platform went ahead after this, as part of this experiment, they went ahead and actually did assign WCs to all of those employers that expressed interest in the context of our survey experiment. So so that already created quite a few jobs. So 40% of clients were able to accept workers with a criminal record. And then they decided the first tier of changes they would make would be to provide the modest crime and safety insurance. So they did that, and they opened up hiring of WCs to all clients. And that's where we got the nice boost in jobs. And so to conclude, without incentives, a third of employers are willing to hire WCs for short-term work. We find that subsidies, which are the traditional policy used by the federal government and other policymakers, subsidies do boost hiring, but they are not cost-effective when compared to performance histories, that type of screening, or objective performance information, which I haven't had a chance to detail for you, but which also works. And when we step back and look at the responsiveness of employers and ask how or why do they rely on the criminal background check in the context of our results, we find evidence of both low productivity expectations that are actually mischaracterizations of WCs, and also fear of having these modest infractions incur on the job. And then the last conclusion, which is an implication of these new policies, is that because there's such a high correlation between race and being screened out of the platform, by replacing the criminal background screening with the crime and safety insurance, it closed the gap in the Black-white exclusion rate from the platform by about 25%. All right, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. We have questions and 1 minute for Q&A. And one question is asking, does the platform ask employers or workers to rate the matching afterwards? And if so, is there any data about the distribution of the rating in the overall population versus WCs?
Yes, so let me show one slide because this is very important, I think. So here, let me just show you. So if you look at this image below, and this word prior is the expectation of in clients about the satisfaction rating, so the 1 to 5 star rating that a worker with a criminal record would receive. So, they think that on average, about 85% would receive the 5-star rating. But you can see there's a long left tail. So many clients think that the workers with a criminal record are actually very unlikely to get a 5-star rating. But because some people with a criminal record were able to complete that first job before the criminal record screening check rejected them from the platform, we had a sample of workers, about 100, who had both a criminal record, would have gotten screened out, but had the opportunity to get rated by the employer. And we found that their performance rating was actually slightly higher than the performance rating of workers who had no criminal record issues. So 86% of them actually did get this 5-star rating. And we were able to shift the beliefs of employers about the expected performance of WCs by showing them this information.